I get a lot of flack from libertarians who get upset that I refer to their political ideology as a religion. They seem quite unhappy that I consider their closely held beliefs to be a faith. But if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck and shits like a duck, it's a duck. There's really no two ways around it. Therefore, I wanted to take a little time here to explain exactly why I hold that position and what libertarians can do to change that impression, although, honestly, I have no real hope that they will do so because, as I keep saying, it's a religion based on blind faith. So let's begin. To start, I want to make it clear that I'm not necessarily talking about all libertarians because the libertarian label encompasses a wide variety of people who really have little to do with each other. You have plenty of people who are, in reality, old-school conservatives who abandoned the Republican Party once the expatriate Southern Democrats came in following Nixon's Southern strategy and declared the Libertarian Party home. I'm not really talking about those people. Then you have the single-issue voters, such as the druggies who just want to be left alone to get wasted and really don't think too much about the political underpinnings of the party. In fact, there are plenty of people like that who have adopted the party simply because they want something and they want everyone else to leave them alone, be it drugs, guns, porn, you name it. I'm not especially talking about those people either, although they have their own serious issues that can be addressed at another time. No, the people I'm talking about are the ones deep into the mythology of the Libertarian Party, the ones who treat the Founding Fathers like the Messiah and who read the collected works of Locke and Hobbes and Rousseau like Holy Scripture. These are more than likely the libertarian apologists that you're going to run into online, desperately evangelizing the faith to convert the masses. I'm describing this in religious terms because it's really no different than how the religious operate. They all want converts. They all want energized believers who will spread the good news and help them to achieve social and political power. I really don't know how else to say it. But like the religious brethren, these extremist libertarians have faith. It isn't a well-reasoned, critically evaluated belief in positions that can be supported and defended intellectually. It is a blind faith, as blind as the most deluded fundamentalist Christian, that the things they believe, the things they have faith in, must be true, if only everyone else would embrace the inherent correctness of their position. They hold axiomatic beliefs that they are unable to defend. They can only assert these are true. Sure, they contort some philosophical arguments in a crude attempt to justify their faith, but just like the religious, they are unable to really step back and look at these ideas for what they actually are. Like a fanatical Christian who has nothing of value to say when asked to prove their God, fanatical libertarians have nothing of value to say when asked to prove something like natural rights. But the second a skeptic points out that their emperor has no clothes on, they explode into a ball of emotional rage that anyone would dare to doubt their obviously perfect and flawless ideas. In this, both they and the religious share a lot in common with conspiracy theorists, and that's not a good thing. In fact, I want to share a list with you. Please take some time to think about what these characteristics suggest to you. It's actually a list of characteristics of conspiracy theorists, but it equally applies to both the religious and the libertarian. They are all arrogant. They are self-assured that they have the one truth, the secret truth to which only they are privy, and if only the ignorant masses would accept their guidance, the world could be saved. They are all relentless in their evangelism. They expect everyone to blindly buy what they're selling, and anyone who doubts their holy word is branded a heretic, unfit to live in their brave new world. They can't answer any questions put to them. Not really. Can they provide a coherent definition of what natural rights are? No, not one that stands up to any scrutiny. Can they prove that natural law exists? Nope, but they're absolutely certain that it does. Just like Christians are with God. And of course, neither side can apply Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is that the government exists at the behest of the people. But no, libertarians are convinced that the government is some giant alien conspiracy designed to control the people from exercising their magical rights that exist out there somehow, yet can never be objectively demonstrated. You might as well be talking about Elvis. And like the religious, who claim evidence for their ideas but can never actually present any, libertarians cannot produce a single demonstrable example where their ideas have ever been successfully tried. Heck, they can't even show where it's been unsuccessfully tried. But they're sure it will. Really! Such blind faith. And because of that faith, they, like the religious, they are unable to withdraw. They must stand firm, convinced in the superiority of their arguments, despite all evidence to the contrary. The simple fact is, the Libertarian Party has been around since 1972, and they have never, ever gotten more than 1% of the popular vote in a presidential election. Ever. In fact, they only ever hit the 1% mark twice in their history, once in 1980 and once in the most recent election. This is not a growing political concern. It's a lost cause, a failed ideas whose adherents refuse to give up the ghost. And finally, they leap to conclusions. As with Christians who will blindly declare God to be responsible for anything they don't understand, libertarians will declare their failures to be a conspiracy to keep them down. It isn't their fault. It's never their fault. Their ideology is perfect, and anyone who can't see that is blind, or part of a treasonous plot to keep them from taking control. They can't imagine that the reason their ideology doesn't appeal to the overwhelming majority of the human population is because their ideology is unrealistic and ridiculous. But that can't possibly be it. I think I told this story in passing once on the podcast, but long ago, and it must have been more than 25 years ago now, I knew someone who was an ardent libertarian and self-identified anarcho-capitalist. He was supremely convinced that the government should just go away entirely, and somehow, through no means that he could articulate, society would magically come up with an agreed-upon currency that would somehow have a constant value without any governing body ensuring it, that everyone would accept, no one would steal or cheat or do anything that would impact fair barter, and society would live happily ever after. Now, granted, this guy was 16 the last time I saw him, and hopefully he's grown up since then, but that's exactly how these libertarians strike me. A bunch of immature kids who have never had to deal with the world as it actually is, instead of the fantasy land that they wish it actually was. And that brings me back to philosophy. Scottish philosopher David Hume came up with the is-ought problem, which libertarians and the religious fall into regularly. Instead of dealing with the world as it actually is, they pretend that the world is as they wish it was, as they think it ought to be. The religious desperately want there to be a God, even though we have no reason to think that one actually exists. Therefore, they just pretend that God is real and don't bother to talk about that assumption. It is, in their worldview, a foregone conclusion. The same goes for libertarians. They desperately want the world to work the way they want it to work. It just doesn't. It never has, and so far as we can tell, given their track record, it never will. But that doesn't stop them from insisting that their unproven axioms and unsupported claims are actually so in the real world. They are wrong. They are religious. There just isn't much difference between the two. Thanks for listening. If you have any intelligent comments or questions, please leave them below. If you're a libertarian and all you're going to say is, nuh-uh, don't bother. Everyone has seen it before and no one is impressed. Why don't you spend some time coming up with real answers and well-reasoned arguments? It would be a refreshing change of pace, but like the religious, you won't. You already think you have the truth. You have no interest in actually proving that it's true, and that, my friends, is sad.